So we're going to now look at parametric modeling, and initially I'm going to run through the theory behind parametric modeling, and then we're going to gradually get more into it using some simple examples onto something a bit more complex. Okay, so first of all, what is parametric modeling? So basically, parametric modeling means you are creating your design based on a series of parameters rather than just doing individual dimensions and building something the way we might have done previously, or the way you might be doing up until now. You can actually input parameters which will affect other parts of your model and allow that model to change automatically. Now, I appreciate if you haven't used this before, you may have no idea what that was all about. It's one of those things, it does sound more complex than it actually is, and the best way to see it is to just get used to using it and look at some examples. So we'll look at that now. And feel free to follow along, but you can just sit back and watch these first few bits. I'm just trying to get over the theory, okay? If you learn better by doing, then feel free to follow along, but you don't have to. By all means, just sit back and watch. So I'm just going to create a simple sketch here. And it's going to be, let's do a center rectangle, okay? And you can see, as normal, I get the option to put in the dimension. So I'm just going to make this 100, tab over 100, okay? So we've done a 100 by 100 rectangle, simple. And I can finish that sketch, and I might extrude that by, let's say, 10. Okay, so we've got a very simple body which anyone can do, okay? And this isn't parametric at all, this is just a design. So let's look at how we can turn this into more of a parametric model and how these parameters work. I'm going to go up here now to this modify tab, and you can see you get this option here, change parameters, okay? And if I click that, then we get this new box. And we have three main kind of titles here. We have favorites, which we can ignore for now, okay? User parameters and model parameters. So the first thing we need to understand is what the difference is between user parameters and model parameters, and we'll go through those now. So model parameters, these are automatically created as you're modeling. So all your things you've done in Fusion, even though you may not have opened this parameters box, these would have been kind of filled in as you worked. A lot like your history here. So it says unsaved. It's just because I haven't saved this drawing yet. I'm going to click this here, and you can see we have these commands. So these are the things we've done. We created a sketch, which was our cube, our square, sorry. And then we extruded it. So if we expand this again, we can see when we created our sketch, it consisted of two dimensions, which it calls D1, dimension 1, D2, dimension 2, okay? And they were both 100 millimeters. And then we extruded it along the distance, D3, 10 millimeters, with a taper angle, D4 of 0. Now when you extrude in Fusion, it always gives you an option for a taper. Most of the time we don't use it, but it's saved it anyway as 0. So we can see it's automatically assigned these D1, D2, D3, D4, and it's done that in the order that we created it. So the first dimension was 100, second 100. So this was our square we created in the sketch. We then extruded it along for 10 millimeters. So it assigned that D3. The taper angle, even though we didn't do it, it's assigned it, it's saved it, D4, so we have the option to add that later if we want by changing it here. And if we were to go along and do more modeling, it would automatically assign that D5, D6, and so on. So every dimension you do and you include, it automatically assigns it this D value, dimension 1, dimension 2, okay? And our model parameters here, we can actually, if I click in here and change that to 50, you'll see it's extruded 50 millimeters. It's changed that dimension 3 to 50 millimeters, okay? So as well as the history, you also have all this going on in here, these model parameters. And it's perfectly possible that you can just go in here and start changing things when you want to change your item, okay? But what you've probably already seen is it's hard to know what is D1, what is D2. In this case, it's a very simple model. We knew that this extrudal on distance that we changed to 50 millimeters, we know it's referring to this thickness here. With our sketch, we don't quite know, although we can take a good guess because of the order it does X and Y. But we wasn't 100% sure that 150 would be in this Y axis. Until we did it and saw how it changed, we weren't 100% sure that D1 and D2 corresponded to this X and Y. We could have taken a good guess just because of the order. 10 is always X first and then Y. But you imagine if this was a more complex design now, and you opened this, and everything was just called D1, D2, you could kind of follow the history and guess what might have been the correct extrusion or sketch you're looking for, but without things being named and all this, it's very difficult to know. And you're not expected to know. It's just this model parameters is Fusion's way of saving everything so you can reference it, okay? What you would do is you would go to user parameters. And you can see next to user parameters, we have this plus sign. This allows us to add a user parameter. So what is a user parameter? Well, it's just something we've specified to make it easier for us to see exactly what things are.